to come from the bowels of hell.
The Dana Gould Hour.
Jungle worms and swamp rats run around your feet.
I bought a dog that killed the calf, that ate the canary. What is truth?
And once again, welcome back.
Hello, and welcome to the Dana Gould Hour Podcast. It's the April episode, just in time for the middle of May. Fasten your enthusiasm harness. We are blasting off yet again. This episode is very late in arriving, and for that you have my apologies. In addition to my going on staff as a writer at a new TV show, which forced me to rearrange my schedule a bit, we also had the taping of the Dr. Z live show at the Netflix as a Joke Festival and the launching of the Hanging with Dr. Z Season 4 Indiegogo campaign. So we had all that going on at once, and then we had some technical difficulties that delayed us a bit as we cleaned up some recording. Long story short, we're late, but we are here now, and next month's episode is right on schedule, so we should be caught up in no time. But thank you for your patience. No, I never forgot you. As the song says, you are always on my mind. We're going to start this month's episode with a discussion of Hel Mel. What is Hel Mel, you ask? Well, it's short for the intersection of Heliotrope and Melrose Avenues in Los Angeles, which is an arty little neighborhood over by LA City College. It is also the name of an art gallery and art collective that was started by actor Val Kilmer. And we're going to talk with Steven Meyer, who is a longtime friend of the late Mr. Kilmer and who ran the gallery with him. Steven himself has had a long and wide-ranging career, taking him from the New York art scene and punk music scene to the New York theater scene to the art gallery world to special effects. He is truly a man for all seasons. Excellent conversation with Steven Meyer. Also, Julian David Stone is here. Julian grew up in the Bay Area, where he started his career as a rock and roll photographer. And he's here to talk about his book of photography, No Cameras Allowed, My Career as an Outlaw Rock and Roll Photographer. In addition, he has a new novel out called It's Alive, which is, I guess you could call it a historical novel. It's based on the very true story of the tumult, chaos, and corporate fuckery that went on behind the scenes at Universal Studios in 1930, the week before the studio began filming the movie Frankenstein, one of the studio's all-time hits, and a film with a cultural impact that we still feel today. But the week before it started filming, the whole thing nearly fell apart. If you like horror movies, or if you just like movies, it is a must-read, especially when you realize that what happened at Universal during this short period in 1930 is still going on in the business today. We've learned nothing in all that time. Bananas. True Tales from Weirdsville tells the sordid tale of a man who came to be known as the Emperor of Night, the Marquis d'Hervé de Saint-Denis, who, in the 1800s, discovered, for lack of a better term, the concept of lucid dreaming. Dreams where you know you are dreaming. This concept moved through history and is still with us today. The conceit that you can actually write and direct your own dreams. It's true. Lucid dreaming. It's real. I think. Or is it? As for me, on Saturday, May 16th, I will be at the historic Everett Theater in Everett, Washington, just up the road from Seattle. And on Saturday, June 27th, I will be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Burgh, as part of the DVE Comedy Festival. And fans of Hanging with Dr. Z are invited to be a part of our Season 4 Indiegogo campaign. We're coming back. For information on all this stuff, please visit danagould.com or my Facebook or Instagram pages. You can follow Dr. Z's adventures on Instagram at Hanging with Dr. Z, in case you didn't know. Lastly, thank the Lord, this program is brought to you by you. Although you may hear a couple of spot ads now and again, this show has always relied on its listeners for support, and we never fail to appreciate you. And so, if you are not one already, please consider becoming a Dana Gould Hour Sky Cadet. Go to danagould.com and sign up for our Patreon. $5 a month. Get you some extra audio content, some video content, and some other junk. We don't have graduated levels. For $17.50 every 6 weeks, I'm not going to come to your home and massage your grandmother. $5 a month, you get some extra stuff. Don't be a shy cadet. Be a Sky Cadet. It's a simple deal for complicated times. And now, it's on to our filthy business.
Tune in, it's a gas. It's the Dana Gould Hour Podcast.
The Dana Gould Hour. Free and worth it.
It is a crisp, clear, blue-skied morning high atop the Mulholland Drive view shelf here in sunny Southern California, the People's Republic of California, here in the former United States. And I'd like to read you the mission statement for an organization here in beautiful Los Angeles, the City of the Angels, for an organization called Hel Mel. Helmel. Hel Mel Studios is a fun, sacred space where eclectic artists collaborate and through new technology, inspire giving and spark change in our local community. Hel Mel Studios was founded by an actor named Val Kilmer, and it was run by my guest, Steven Meyer.
Hi.
Although that is merely the tip of the iceberg of Meyerania. But we'll start from that hard candy center and work outward. How you knew Mr. Kilmer for
we met
decades.
We met when he was right out of Juilliard in around 1981 at the Guthrie Theater. And
now that's in Minneapolis.
Yes.
Are you from Minneapolis?
Yes, originally.
But he is not.
No, he's from Southern California.
Yeah. Was he doing an internship there or just
No, they had done How It All Began at the Public Theater.
Okay.
And he'd gotten out of Juilliard and he was working professionally, and it was one of his first rep theater professional jobs.
Oh, wow, great. Yeah, because before he was famous.
Yeah.
That's the key.
It is. He was one of the best actors I'd ever seen.
I'm sure.
And I got to work with a lot of great actors at the Guthrie. He was shockingly good.
Yeah.
And we were roomies for a while and had a great time. We were 21.
Sure.
And in Minneapolis and working.
Oh, my God.
So it was fun. I was stage managing and spear carrying at the Guthrie at the time.
I just imagine the amount of women Val Kilmer yanked in 1981 as a 21-year-old.
He was
Minnesota theater scene.
Yeah, it was fun to be around.
Now, is First Avenue going then? Was it already open?
Yeah. In fact, First Avenue, 7th Street entry.
Yeah.
I did an early job for Prince at the time as a PA for Chuck Statler.
Right.
Who did the Prince and Devo music videos. Right. I was the coffee boy for Bougie Boy.
Okay. So, I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. That's see again. You just scratch the surface. And was the CNCC or CNC Club still going?
Not that no.
Okay.
I don't think so.
That was just the bar.
Yeah.
I was there last weekend.
Oh,
and I walked right past it. That's the bar the Replacements used to drink at.
I do remember the State Theater turned into a Jesus People church at one point, and I remember
aren't all churches Jesus People churches?
Yeah. It's true, but I do remember walking by when they were proselytizing out front and saying quite loudly, "I saw God here one evening."
Sure. In
the form of Patti Smith, and they got very mad at it.
Right, yeah, or Eric Clapton or whoever your God of the moment is. So you're friends with Val Kilmer in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Do you both go back to New York?
I followed him.
Okay.
Shortly thereafter. And I was, working in theater and trying to get work wherever I could. Because that's what you do in your early 20s. And you moved to New York from Minnesota.
And he took off in about 84, 85?
He did a play off Broadway called Slab Boys. And the cast on that was Jackie Earle Haley, Kevin Bacon, and Sean Penn, and Val.
Okay.
And it was a play about Scottish pigment grinders.
Okay. Yeah.
That's supplying pigments for painters. Right. And I got to go to the opening on Broadway.
Right.
And Val was dating Cher by that time.
Okay. So I didn't know he dated Cher.
Yeah.
But that makes perfect sense.
Yes. And I got to go to my first time at Elaine's, who was with that group.
Wow.
And everybody in the world came by.
But he wasn't famous at the time. He was just famous in New York.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, but Cher was famous.
Sure, Cher was.
And you're sitting at the table and everybody in the world comes by and shakes hands.
Yeah.
And that's right after I got to New York. And I'm thinking, oh, this is what life's going to be like.
Right.
It certainly wasn't. But I had a slightly twisted view of what New York was going to be like. But
you weren't an actor. You were like in the
I was an actor sometimes, but I've realized I saw enough brilliant actors and realized I'm not that.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I can't do that.
There's a David Warlow who Val and I worked with at the Guthrie. One of the guys who started Mabu Mines with Joanne Akalitis and Lee Brewer and that group.
Real actors.
Real actor. When he'd walk out on stage, the entire dance company would watch him move.
Right.
He was that good.
Right. No, I'm amazed by those people that can just transmogrify on stage. I have gotten to the point where I have, through sincere hard work and diligence, managed to pull off a pretty convincing impression of somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I understand that completely. When you see somebody who's just, Val on stage, you couldn't take your eyes off him.
Yeah.
I mean, even in his early 20s, he was just a genius.
And Michael Shannon is one of those people where, like, in that moment, he is that person.
Mm-hmm.
He's never not that person. He's never thinking, oh God, when I get out of here, I got to buy plums. I do admire those people that like Daniel Day-Lewis. I remember seeing My Left Foot thinking, well, there's something I couldn't do if I had a gun to my head.
Yeah,
I just imagine Quentin Tarantino walking out of that movie going, it's not what I wanted it to be.
Yeah,
I'm going to go see Barefoot in the Park. So he kind of explodes off that and is
he did Top Secret, so he was the lead in his first film.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
Now it's like and that was a big movie because that was the follow-up of Airplane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the sight gags in that are just brilliant.
And it was a wacky comedy.
Yeah, it was. And he did all his own singing.
Yeah, well, he's a good singer, as you can hear in the
I heard the story about skeet surfing, which opens the show. It's a surf guitar song, but grab your shotgun and go down to the beach, and it's about shooting clay pigeons while surfing.
Right. Natch.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the title after all.
Yeah.
But how that came about is one of the Zuckers was on a plane and some Japanese journalist asked what was the big thing in California. And they just came up with that lie on the fly. So they ended up making it real.
That's.
We did a T-shirt actually that you can find on the website. That's the endless summer image, except the surfboards are replaced with shotguns, and it says, it's skate surfing when the flak and the surf get heavy.
So he goes to LA, becomes a movie star, and you stay in New York, and you ended up working.
Oh, I did a lot of.
You ended up working with Laurie Anderson and Lou Reed and all. You fell into your own sort of like New York theater tech.
I was doing a lot of performance art on Avenue A.
Right. Because of the money?
Yeah. It's just unbelievable. And I went through the 80s with a whole lot of performance artists and musicians. And
do you know Joanna Wendt?
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay, she's an LA-based performance artist, same era.
Yeah.
Performed at the Mask.
Oh, okay.
And was married to Stuart Kornfeld, if you know Stuart.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So you're in the heart of New York in the 80s.
Yeah.
Which is not New York now.
No. And in fact, you could actually afford to live downtown in New York then.
Really? Yeah.
As an artist, my first job in New York City was at the Strand bookstore for basically minimum wage.
Uh-huh.
And I could make rent.
Right. That's insane.
Which is nuts because...
Yeah, now it's not even conceivable.
No. And I don't know if I was that age now, if I would do it.
Sure. Well, because you have all that experience.
Yeah.
But it's so funny to people that only know New York in this in this century.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in Times Square in 1984. And the first thing I saw when I walked out of Penn Station, which is not in Times Square, was a guy getting his head kicked into a brick wall.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember in 82.
And by the way, that's true.
Yeah. 82, I was getting out of a taxi cab on 9th Avenue and 48th Street in the winter. And I got out of the cab and there's a woman walking by, squatted in the middle of the street and pissed in the middle of the street. And steam came up.
Yeah.
And in an odd way, it was twistedly beautiful.
Yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah.
No, I know. But it is so funny. I watched Serpico the other night.
Oh, God.
And, I don't know when it occurred, probably around 71, 72, that New York really just went into a period of rapid decay.
Yeah.
And it was like the difference between New York from 64 to 74 is a pendulum swing.
Yeah.
And still like that in the 80s until really the early 90s is when it started to turn around.
Yeah.
Credit where credit was due. It was under Giuliani before he lost his mind.
He had lost his mind then.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as transparent.
Yeah. That's why I think so much great art came out of it, because it was a concrete jungle. It was
before everybody died in the early 80s.
Right.
Before everyone was getting sick and started dying.
Yeah, it was mostly AIDS.
Yeah. And there was two things. We were all in our 20s and pretty much fucking everything that moved at the time. And there was a lot of drug use. There's a whole lot of needle use.
Yeah, I was going to say, it wasn't just like the drugs went from pot to
heroin mostly.
Yeah, to heroin. Again, you get a lot of good music out of it.
It's true. Can't argue that.
But you can't talk to the people that made it because they're all dead.
Yeah. So that was we thought it was going to be like Paris in the 20s.
Yeah.
There was a real life. There was
turned into Paris in the 40s.
No shit. By the end of the 80s, it was awful.
Yeah.
And it was.
Yeah, it was a graveyard.
It was a funeral every week for a long time.
Yeah.
And
people forget. I remember my friends lived in San Francisco in the Castro. They lived at 14th and Castro. They didn't know that they were moving into the heart of, they just thought, oh, it's Castro. Seems like a nice neighborhood. And in a year, it went from this nice neighborhood to just ambulances.
Yeah.
Constant ambulances.
Yeah. Yeah. When I moved to the East Village to Avenue A, a cab wouldn't take you there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they wouldn't take you there.
Yeah.
You were lucky you could get dropped off on the First Avenue.
Yeah. They just
and have to hike over.
Not going down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then by the time I left, it was NYU students wall to wall. I was the oldest guy on the block.
So, and when did you connect with the Lou Reed and the Laurie Anderson of it all?
Well, I did Laurie's Stories from the Nerve Bible big show at the Annenberg in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a Europe tour with her after that. And then
was she with Lou Reed by then?
Well, when she was mixing the album Bright Red that came out of that show and that tour, she had started seeing Lou.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I met Lou Reed, Laurie had said, "Come by the studio." It was a mixing studio in the 30s,
right
off Fifth Avenue. I'm still a New Yorker. I still give people the address so they know where it is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a hard habit to break.
And again, Lou Reed, he's famous for treating fans poorly. For one thing,
I want to get to this at some point, but you're very close with Lou Reed and you're very close with Val Kilmer. Both of them have very questionable reputations. I'm sure you have nothing but good stories about both of them, but I'm curious.
There's actually a musician, what's his name? Brian Starr.
Uh-huh.
He's a glam musician, and he's been collecting people's Lou Reed stories for quite a while.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a Norwegian rock journalist. Who's like, it scarred him.
Well, I'd heard some of these stories.
Sure.
So Laurie invites me to the studio, and I have no idea that Lou's going to be there. I kind of knew she was dating him because she'd told me she'd been seeing him, but I didn't know how serious it was at the time. So we show up, and it's her and her manager, who was the same woman, Linda Goldstein, who also managed David Byrne and Bobby McFerrin at the time.
Okay.
And
John Denver, a weird mix.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Milli Vanilli. So we're it's the little tiny shitty elevator, with all the graffiti on the aluminum.
Right.
So we ride up, and I've got my motorcycle helmet.
Right. You still ride a bike?
I still do. In fact, I pulled up here and on it today. And Laurie goes, "Oh, you guys just go wait in the waiting room," and it's the waiting room that has the little round IKEA table, and and the microwave that's been stained by burritos that you don't want to think about, and
it's
coffee.
Not cool at all.
It's not even remotely plush or cool.
Right.
And so I'm sitting across from Lou Reed, and I'm smart enough not to go, "Oh, Lou, Berlin changed my life."
Yeah,
I'm not,
Sure, yeah.
So he looks down and he said, "What are you riding?" I said, Honda Shadow. Didn't you used to pimp Hondas? Was my first thing I said to him.
Oh, good for you.
Because you remember those 80s scooter things. And so we talked about motorcycles and how scary it was on the Honda Magna because it was really powerful, and you'd be on the FDR and look down and you realize you were going 75 miles an hour, and that's not safe.
That's great because you talked about something that had nothing to do with him, just something he's interested in.
We didn't even talk about Laurie or the album.
Yeah, great. That's perfect.
It was just talked about motorcycles for like a half an hour because it took forever.
Right.
And I was having a good time because in the back of my mind, I'm going, I'm fucking talking to Lou Reed.
Yeah. No, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Andy, the late, again, everyone we're talking about is dead. Andy Paley told me that he went to London to accept an award for pet sounds in the late 80s or something because Mojo was giving an award, like Album of the Century or something. And he goes, and I'm at the bar and I hear a voice behind me say, "Congratulations, Andy, you just accepted an award for my favorite album." And then he goes, "I know that voice." And I turn around, there's Paul McCartney.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, how's Brian? How's Melinda? Because Brian and Andy were super tight. how's Brian? How's Melinda? And Andy, who's from Boston, and this is a very Boston thing. He just goes, I got to tell you, I'm really nervous talking to you, which is perfect. And Paul goes, I know, give it 15 minutes and it'll go away. Yeah. I'm the same way when I talk to the Everly Brothers.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, yeah.
You can see that. Yeah.
And
totally understandable.
Yeah. And I remember when I met McCartney backstage at Jimmy Kimmel Live, I stood closer to him than I am to you. Mm-hmm. I just looked at him and smiled and nodded. I was like, there's nothing I can say. And then later we're up in the green room, kind of patting ourselves on the back that we're hanging out with Paul McCartney and we're all being cool. And then I was like, hey, where's Paul McCartney? And then we look and he's literally been cornered by some guy. And all we see is the back of the guy and him gesticulating wildly. And someone who knew him went and got it. Was no, he knows his music means a lot to you. He knows. You don't have to tell him. He knows.
I have an old theater director I used to work with named George Wade, and I introduced him to Hume Cronin and Jessica Tandy at the Guthrie.
Wow.
And a theater guy, so of course these are
the Lou Reed and Laurie Anderson of the 30s
of theater, back then.
Yeah, and
the guy was really good on his feet, and he wanted to come up with something,
Yeah.
So what he said to Hume Cronin was, "I'm going to school." Because he taught theater as well. He says, I'm going to school on Monday. I have a class. So could you say something famous?
I heard the story. It may be apocryphal, but guy got into an elevator with Mel Brooks. Guy's in an elevator. The door opens. Mel Brooks gets in the elevator. The door's shut, and they're riding. And the guy just turns to Mel Brooks and says, "Bet you didn't plan on meeting me today." I hope it's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a trick when you meet people like that just.
But also people that make you kind of Jesus.
No, I was like that with Albert Brooks. Because he was my Elvis Presley. And I was again really fortunate that by the time I met him, I knew not to do that.
Yeah.
And because I know people that have had salty exchanges with him, and that would just crush me. And that's why I'm I'm not famous, but like when I meet people, I'm always solicitous. I will tell you this story, and then I was talking to George Carlin, who was my other Elvis. We're just talking. Guy walked right up, cuts it. Hey, I saw you in Indianapolis in 1974. It was blah, blah, blah. And he was, oh, yeah, I remember that. Sure. But it was so rude. And when the guy walked away, he just looked at me and goes, that moment's about him. It's not about us.
Yeah.
And he knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's grace. He was really graceful.
Yes, he was.
Tony Hendra, who is a very dear friend of mine,
co-wrote the book.
His
Yeah,
and he had
which I have right over there.
Oh, you do,
as well as Tony's other book, Going Too Far, which is a really
love
underrated
that book.
Really underrated book.
It's a doorstop of a book.
Yeah, but it's really underrated,
and it's pretty academic look at the development
of revolutionary comedy. Yeah, countercultural comedy.
Yeah, I don't know many people who've read that. So
yeah, no, I bought that when it came out.
We did a show.
Is he still with us?
No, he died a few years ago.
Yeah.
I did a pilot with him in New York many years ago. With Tony, directed by Jeff Lieberman.
Sure.
I know
Jeff's been on this podcast.
Who did Blue Sunshine.
And Squirm.
Yes. Yeah. And the theory on it was sort of a mockumentary style thing with Tony and the lead of it. And it was called The Funny because he had a theory that Long Island was the source of so many great comedians,
right?
Lenny Bruce and Seinfeld and
opposite ends of the spectrum.
Well, I know, but wait, are you Eddie Murphy, Don Crystal, Andy Kaufman,
Adam Sandler,
Rodney Dangerfield?
Yep.
All Long Island.
Right.
So he thought because he just
is Andy Kaufman from Long Island?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, everybody.
I think so.
Yeah.
Anyway, he had this theory that it must be the water or it must be something. And so we went around, I made a fake laugh meter that was supposed to have been from the Ed Sullivan show.
That's amazing.
And it looked like a Geiger counter with a wand.
Sure. Yeah, of course. That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
And he went around, trying to test things to make him funny because he wasn't funny was the whole conceit. And he ends up doing all this tests, and he thinks he has had the funny because he's ingested all these, spent time there, he's ingested the water, he's done all these things. And so he comes to LA and meets with Rob Reiner.
Right.
Who was really great and did this,
Sure.
And Tony does these whole series of things that aren't funny. The string that goes through the fake ears, he goes, mental flaws, that just like really stupid gags. And Rob Reiner sits there absolutely stone-faced for the whole thing.
That's amazing.
He just fails miserably at it. And so that was the pilot. And I played the young Tony Hendra in the pilot because Chris Farley had died and he was originally going to do it.
Okay, yeah.
So everything's
I know exactly when this was. Yeah. Everyone's dead.
Chris Gambale, a friend of mine, wrote a piece for Freddie Roman at the Friars Club where he plays an old agent, like a really old agent. Yeah. And everyone in his Rolodex is dead.
Everyone was talking about it. And you were in the Friars Club.
Yeah.
Now, how did you come to be in the Friars Club in New York? Because I had a very weird experience with the LA Friars Club. So,
LA Friars Club smelled weird, and it was only open.
Smelled like Milton.
It was only there to give Milton a place to play pinochle.
To go during the day. So when and how did you get into the New York Friars Club?
Well, Chris Gambale, who wrote Deuces Wild. I don't know if you remember that movie.
I don't.
Chris is interesting because he
sequel
worked
to Ace in the Hole.
No, it was a 50s gangster movie.
Okay.
Mob movie with Matt Dillon and a bunch of other people.
Oh, okay. So a movie.
Executive produced by Scorsese and directed by Scott Calvert.
All right.
Who did Basketball Diaries.
Yeah. Again, perfect New York.
Yeah. Anyway, he had worked for Cosby when he was a youngster. Mm-hmm. On the Cosby Show as an assistant.
He helped Bill make his sleepy punch.
Exactly. As an assistant to Jay Sandrich.
Okay. Yep.
And then he ended up heading the office for special projects for Harvey Weinstein. So he worked for
whatever was that?
So he worked
Cosby to Weinstein.
Exactly.
Is he now in witness protection? Is this guy still
not
out?
Quite. Not quite.
And then he went to Jeffrey Epstein. I'm assuming you just climbed the ladder.
No, I think he went to Brett Ratner after that. But I could be wrong.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway,
now he's the head of the DOD.
Exactly. No, he's he and I did a few projects together. So if you look me up on IMDb, I share his name on a number of things. So we worked together for a long time, and he had been a friar, so he made me he nominated me, and I became a friar, and I was seconded by
Freddie Roman.
Freddie Roman.
Oh yeah. I didn't know Freddie, but I knew his son.
The Friars Club had an auction because it was shut down and it's gone.
Yes,
gone.
And you have.
I bid on auction the painting of
Jack
Benny that was hanging at the club, and I have picked many photographs of people sitting under that doing the pose. From the painting. I won it at auction, and I have it hanging in my home.
I'm very good friends with Drew Friedman, who listens to this podcast, who as we speak is going. I have to get that painting.
I went to see the documentary about him
for his museum.
I went to see the documentary
at the Newmart
in Santa Monica.
Yeah, I was at that.
Oh, that's right, you were. I saw you briefly there.
Yeah.
And he signed my books and
he's the
rest of it. There's some really great drawings of a lot of those old friars that
So, and these people that are just like, we're talking about New York in the 80s. He's talking about New York in the 40s and 50s. It was just a whole world.
Yeah.
That's gone. And gone is fine. Gone and forgotten isn't, and because all of this stuff repeats itself, and it's really important to remember that stuff. I always wanted to do a photo book of comedians' set lists. because they all look like weird poems.
Yeah. Yeah.
My set list used to start with, I was opening for Stephen Wright, and my set list started with AIDS, rape, 9/11. And he just looked at it and he just went, "That's amazing." I just think that it would be a really fascinating thing. But
there's a round table at the Friars Club in the bar where all the old timers used to sit.
Right.
And if you were blessed in some way, you would get invited over to that table. Or if you were a good looking woman.
Right.
And so the first time you got to sit at that table was always kind of an honor when you were invited to sit at that table. And it was competitive, clever around the table.
But so you're friends with Lou Reed and you're friends with Val Kilmer, but not everybody you're friends with has a questionable reputation, because you're also friends with Milton Berle.
Well, no. The Milton Berle story that you would get at that round table,
sure,
was somebody would always, and I used to tell
talk
it when
about his giant cock.
Well, the story that you'd always hear was that somebody in the steam room would challenge Uncle Milty to a dick swinging contest, and Milton would take out enough to win.
Yeah, just enough to win. Yeah.
That was the classic punchline joke.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times I heard it, because it was repeated a lot.
Of course. How many times did Milton repeat it? I remember I was dragooned into joining the Friars here in LA, and it was very early 90s, and Nevermind had just come out. And, I was I was late 20s, mid 20s, this music sort of like, this is the most popular music in the world, and it's one of my favorite bands. And suddenly I'm the zeitgeist. I am who advertising is directed at. I'm a guy in his mid 20s with disposable income. The whole world is looking at me. I'm in my peak. And Bud Friedman took me to the Friars to get inducted, and I had lunch with Milton Berle. And I'm just in this dark, windowless room.
It was a horrible place.
With this gas bag, smoking a cigar. And I remember walking out of there, taking off my coat because it reeked of cigar smoke, rolling down my windows and blasting Nevermind, just to get it out, get the old off me. Like, get this off of me. And I was like, no, I can't do this.
It had creeping ossification going always.
Yeah.
And in the New York club, Chris and I started a Thursday night. Our night out was Thursday night. Right. So we would go and start at the club. And we had a lot of friends who were musicians, and there was a piano in the bar on the second floor. And so we started pulling it out, and people would play, and we'd sing. And then we invited other musicians to come by. And Thursday night people started showing up on Thursday just for this improv entertainment.
Yeah.
And the whole idea was this backstage after theater, which is kind of what I was trying to recreate with Chris. And it became a real thing, and they started making some money.
Yeah.
So, of course, they wanted to have it produced.
Right.
And we both said, no, the moment you produce this, then the charm goes away. This is backstage after theater. It's
that's the whole point.
Sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's not. It's never even. It's always uneven.
Right. Yeah. But that's the
point.
That's the point. Thank you. Yeah.
And it ended up getting produced by the club, and then became the same guys doing the same Sinatra covers, the same every Thursday.
Yeah.
And we stopped going to what we'd started.
Sure.
Because it's a creeping ossification. Yeah.
There is some great stuff. Jay Kogan, who you might know, writer and really gifted improv actor, has a terrific podcast called Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. Free plug. His bachelor party was not it had nothing to do with the bathing suit area. And I believe it was at the Friars here in LA, but I might be wrong. But it had a lot of those guys because Jay's dad, Arnie, was an old TV writer, like Carol Burnett Show.
Yeah.
Arnie, the great Arnie Kogan. And one of the greatest jokes I've ever heard was at Jay's bachelor party. Gary Owens said, as a child, Jay always wondered why the Miss Universe pageant was always won by a woman from Earth. I just thought that was one of the greatest jokes. I still remember it like it was, so yeah, I totally get how it was.
Yeah.
I'm on a text thread with a bunch of comedians.
Yeah.
And we're back and forth all day, every day. That was what the Friars Club was before texting.
Yeah. And it was.
You just go there, you play cards.
And I really drinking with comedians is really fun.
Sure.
And most comedians like that.
Have a problem with it. Yeah. Or certainly did.
I did. I don't know if you saw Jeff Ross's recent one-man show.
No, but it was directed by my very good friend, Steve Kessler.
Oh, that's right.
Who I was just going to mention because his friend owns the Jerry Lewis family portrait that Margaret Keane did.
Oh my God. Really?
Yes. And
how big are Lewis's eyes in
They're
it?
all big. And I've had my photo taken with that paint.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, Jeff was at the time living in New York. This is before he was the roast master, but not to the degree he is now. And that the one-man show's really, really good. I saw it when he was workshopping it.
Steve is so good.
At Largo.
Steve is so good.
He workshopped it at Largo.
Yeah. Kessler's the greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it still going, or are they going to? Is he going to tour it, or
he did? He was on Broadway with it.
Yeah,
and they filmed it, and now it's I think it's on Netflix.
Oh, good. I'll have to get the.
It's on one of them.
Yeah, it's on one of the many. So you have this whole New York art career. You're hanging with all of these people. How did you end up back in LA? And are you in touch with Kilmer this whole time?
Yeah.
Or do you guys kind of drift apart and come back together?
On and off. I did some work with him. I sort of was production manager for him intermittently a couple of times over the course of his career as he became the movie star we all know and love.
Yeah. And did he ever is he like, God, I'm doing Batman, I hate it?
He didn't like doing Batman too much. He said the suit was doing all the work.
Yeah.
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 He didn't have a day off between Batman, Heat, and Island of Dr. Moreau. Yeah.
And you can tell because he's by that time he's starting to crack up.
Well, he's not
so overworked and stressed out.
He wrapped the last shoot on Batman, and I was on set for that with him. I think on a Saturday or Sunday, and he started Heat on a following Monday.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
it was
brilliant in that movie.
Yeah, he is. They're doing a Heat too.
Yeah. No, my Heat is my wife's favorite movie, so we watch it a lot.
Oh, cool.
And it's interesting because Michael Keaton told a story about.
I love him, but I did a film with him also.
Oh, I want to get to that. Yeah. Michael Keaton told a story about Jack Nicholson told him in the makeup trailer of Batman, let the suit do the work. And it is one of those things where you can't compete with the suit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just got to kind of let it do its thing.
I wouldn't be surprised if almost every actor who's played Batman has felt that.
Yeah.
And may have, I think they may all have voiced that in some way.
And it is weird that the thing that makes you the most famous requires so little work.
Yeah.
I mean, the work is stamina.
Yeah. And not being able to go to the bathroom for X number of hours. Yeah.
Yeah. You could see that in Sean Connery towards the end of Bond, where he's just like, I'm not doing anything. Guys.
No, it's, I saw Camelot with
Richard
Harris.
Yeah.
And by the time I saw it, he was literally looking at the mark on the floor and would stop over and get the mark, do his shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine.
And it was just, and still got a standing ovation for a performance that was the laziest thing I'd ever seen.
So you're in touch with him
on and off for a bunch of time. And
were you around the Doors?
Just before.
And because that was really one where he seemed to have become that dude.
Yeah.
which is maybe not great.
I wasn't on set for any of that, but I did get a pile of friends, a couple of paydays by being extras in it.
Sure.
So that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
And I was in New York at that time, not LA. So I wasn't out here for any of the shooting of that.
I remember when they painted the whiskey to look like it did.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a couple photos of it somewhere. And now I just drove by there the other day. There is an electronic billboard that basically is blocking the view of the whiskey that looks like a giant.
Yeah.
It is the ugliest motherfucking thing. I don't know what they're doing to the Sunset Strip. And I'm not a giant fan of the Sunset Strip. I'm not like a nightclubby. I mean, I work in nightclubs, so why the fuck am I going to go on my night off?
Busman's holiday.
Yeah. But it's just, they're just bulldozing the whole place to build hotels. Who's going to go to the hotel? Who's coming here? It's only hotels. They'll come to LA and see other hotels. I don't understand why they think everyone's going to come here and fill up these hotels. There's nothing here anymore.
Yeah. It's you have one of your guests. It's a woman who's a LA
Allison Martino.
Yes,
she's great. Yeah,
I follow her, and her she complains in just the right way about those things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh. Yeah, no, you drove past the Laurel Canyon Country Store on your way here. That's also like, I used to live right behind the Chateau Marmont.
Oh, okay. Right up there.
Yeah, it was a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
Across the street was David LaChapelle.
Mm-hmm.
Next door was Draco Rosa, who produced Livin' La Vida Loca.
Yeah.
Around the corner, Timothy Dalton. 2 blocks up, I think Stuart Kornfeld lived 2 blocks up.
Wow.
And Sandra Bullock.
Oh, wow.
It was a good
we had Val's memorial at the chateau.
Okay.
Yeah, which would only make sense,
right?
You know,
but when he did the doors, it looked like he really went inside that guy.
The performance is pretty jaw-droppingly good.
Yeah,
you know,
and I sometimes, like with a real actor, especially like a real method actor, you have to live with that person until you're done, and it takes a while to walk it off. I remember Harry Dean Stanton turned down Frank Booth in Blue Velvet because he said, I didn't want that person inside me for that long a time.
Yeah, I do think Val did attribute that going deep into Morrison as one of the things that harmed his marriage.
I'm sure. Yeah. When he was out of it, he's like, thank God I'm out of that thing.
He liked to gossip about stuff way after it was over.
Right.
I mean, it really needed to have settled for a long time before he was able to kind of go back and talk about it. So about 10 years ago, maybe it's 11 years ago now, Val was in New York, which he wasn't often.
Right.
And this was after he had lost his voice.
Okay.
And so he'd been touring the Mark Twain one-man show that he did.
Right.
And he was in New York doing a movie called The Super, which is a sort of a horror movie, a suspense movie. And he called me up and sort of, he had a voice that sounded, it sounded like, he described it as a frog on ketamine or something. Anyway,
was it with an assist, or was it just that was what was
he
left?
had a trach, and so he could croak.
Talk if he could croak, close the trach
through
off,
things,
right?
yeah. And so we got together, and I went to set a bunch, and we just started hanging out again, and it was like it was the 80s again.
Yeah.
And we had a really nice time, and he liked my wife a lot, you know, and liked hanging out with her because, well, she's smart.
Yeah.
Fun to hang out with.
Yeah. And I would, the interesting thing when his voice was his life.
Yeah.
He's an actor.
Yeah.
And what is a real testament to his parents was he knew who he was enough that did not end him. That he continued to create art in different ways.
He was one of the most sort of aggressively creative people I've ever met, and tireless. And because he couldn't act to the degree that he would have liked, because his voice was gone, he put that energy into painting.
Right.
And into making Hel Mel work and into a variety of things. But they were all creative efforts. And he was tireless, and he got irritated with people around him if they weren't as tireless as he was.
Yeah.
And he was hard to keep up with.
Right. Yeah.
So there,
No, I get it, and I admire it, and I aspire to it. And we talk about David Lynch on this a lot. Like, he would put the same amount of effort into a movie or a painting or a table, or it's like, I'm gonna make something today. I'm gonna make something today. People ask me, like, why do you do that? Because I like to make stuff. Why are you doing that? Because I like I like doing stuff. I like making stuff.
Making stuff's good.
Yeah, it's fun.
I like to build stuff.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I bought a 3D printer. I make things.
Yeah,
it's fun.
I'm the same way.
And I don't feel like I'm not good unless I'm busy. I'm not good unless I'm working.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Same exact way. Same exact way. So anyway, you guys reconnect in New York after he's lost his voice.
Yeah. And he's, and at the time I had just lost my rent controlled artist loft because of the way New York changed the laws.
And how long had you had that?
17 years.
God bless you. Yeah.
We could have dinner parties for 12 there, and we did often. So
yeah. And it was rent
and
control.
the lifestyle change.
What neighborhood?
Lower East Side.
Okay.
Henry Street between Jefferson and
Clinton.
Yeah. We called it Chateau Ghetto. It's really fun.
Of course you did.
So we were. It was really hard to maintain a lifestyle even close to what we had, being an artist and having to pay rent in Manhattan. We could have gotten a place that was probably 400 square feet for the same amount, well, for 3 times more than we were paying for the loft.
Right.
So we moved uptown for a bit to 177th Street.
Mm-hmm. That's uptown.
But I stayed in that place about 2 weeks because Val said, "You want to come to LA and help me take the Twain film that we made of the play on the road? I can do a croak through Q&A after we'll screen the movie," because he still wanted people to see the show.
So now was he cancer free?
Yeah.
At that point?
At that point, yeah.
Okay. What was it that fell him?
He had a tumor, throat tumor,
right? And
it required a trach, and he just didn't get his voice back. Sometimes it heals back, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
We were all hopeful,
right.
And it became clear that wasn't going to happen,
right? Which
Which was hard to come to because we collectively try and lie to ourselves and say, no, it's sounding better, but it wasn't getting better,
right?
But we took the film out on the road, and we found a solution to 4-walling in theaters, which is a little pricey.
Yeah.
Comedy clubs on off nights.
Great. Brilliant.
We would book and we used one of the agents. Anyway, we booked comedy clubs.
Smart.
And they would give us a great deal, and he would do the Q&A, croak through the Q&A, and Val was as good as any stand-up I've ever seen.
Sure.
He was really funny.
Yes. Well, Top Secret, his first movie, like, you can't not be funny.
And Real Genius. He's just very good in that. Yeah.
No, he knows what, and Doc Holliday is fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I think that's my favorite role of his.
Oh, I think it's
and in the Fans also, he did these really, really cool paintings of Doc Holliday.
Yes, I know. I'm familiar. Yeah.
Those were the ones that were the most popular, that the fans bought the most of.
It is a transcendent performance.
Yeah,
I mean, it is. I wonder if people like Kurt Russell and when they're on the set, because it's so hard to know. Like I'm in a movie that's great, and I'm in a movie that's not great, and my set experiences were the same. Yeah. You don't know.
You never know.
But I wonder if they're like, oh, this is something that's going to really jump off the screen.
Yeah,
because it's just too good.
Yeah. And it really is. And that's one of those movies. It's sort of like Godfather 2. Every time it comes on, you can't really.
Yeah. And apparently it was very tumultuous to make. I think there's a lot of issues with it.
There's a whole hour of stories about that.
Yeah.
But, and there's quite a few of them in Val's autobiography. It's called I'm Your Huckleberry.
I'm Your Huckleberry. Okay. Because I've seen the documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was Amazon.
Yeah.
And
his son
does the narration,
and
as him.
It's
yeah,
astounding.
Yeah,
astounding, because you think, how did he do this?
Yeah,
how did they do this?
And the producers that came on were A24.
Yeah,
and they were really good. And I think they hooked up the Amazon deal,
probably
for it. And we were really happy with how it came out.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's really great.
There's film in there. I brought my intern in to go through on a Steenbeck.
Right.
All the 16 millimeter film that Val and I had shot in Moscow in 1986 when we were doing a documentary that never came out about anti-nuclear war things.
Right.
But none of the stuff had ever been transferred. So I had to, we rack up the film in the Steenbeck, ran it through, poked a video camera at the screen so we could clip the stuff that we wanted to transfer for the documentary.
Got it. Yeah, well, the fact that he always walked around with a movie camera turned out to be quite.
And from the very first video camera, he always had, from the very first, his first guy I ever knew who had one.
Yeah,
I mean, who wasn't one of the video freaks, video artists on the Lower East Side.
Yeah,
who had the Sony, reel-to-reel black and white things they were making art with.
Right. So Hel Mel came out of his desire to reinvent himself with his new limited capacity.
Yeah, pretty much. And he wanted a place to both show the art and make art and collaborate with people.
Yeah, and he didn't just hole up in Malibu.
No, not at all.
That's,
he really, really put it out there.
Yeah. And Hel Mel, for people that don't know, it's on Melrose Avenue.
Yeah.
Down by Heliotrope, right?
Yeah, right off Heliotrope.
Yeah. By the fake gallery, kind of. It used to be the fake. Now it's called the Yard.
Yeah.
It used to be
Yard.
the fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. It used to be Paul Kozlowski's
it was a great performance space as well.
Yeah.
They built a stage and
right by LA City College.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But built a stage and lights. And
but not for people to listen. Not a ritzy neighborhood.
Not a ritzy neighborhood. And
a university neighborhood.
Yeah. Actually it's my neighborhood. I live up.
Yeah.
In fact, I rented a place right by there. I've lived there now for a long time because I was told when I moved to Los Angeles from New York, the secret to Los Angeles is live near where you work.
Yes. So you move out here with him. He said, can you come out for 6 months and give me a hand? My wife, who travels for a living, she writes about food and travel and stuff, and mostly in Swedish and French and like that. So it didn't matter where we live. And again, the change in living situation in New York was getting a little rough. So I came out for 6 months, and 10 years later, still here. You've been here for 10 years.
Yeah.
And you worked with Val for all of that time. Is that? And you're also you're producing movies. You're special effects. You have quite a brief. So it's so weird because people think he was ill because he looked different, but he was not sick for a lot of that time.
No. The last year or so was when he started to go down. It was pretty fast.
And he went. What was his illness? Was it pneumonia that he died?
Yeah, at the end. Yeah,
it was basically just pneumonia.
Yeah, and it's.
Was it compromised health because
it was compromised health because of the other issues.
Right.
But Val and I are the same age.
Right.
And
I saw a gentleman I know who has passed, and I was helping clean out his stuff, and there's photos of him from his 60th birthday party, and I'm like, well, I'm 60, but I look 40 years younger than he did. It's some, I don't know what it is. If it's just luck of the draw. I mean, this sounds. My dad's 95. He looks 80.
Yeah.
Mel does not look 99.
No, he does not.
No. I think a lot of it is your spirit.
Yeah. And Val was looking pretty good.
Yeah.
until the last few months.
Yeah. Was he married, or did he have a
He had been divorced for quite a while.
Did he only marry Joanne?
Yes.
That was it?
That was it.
I didn't know that.
One marriage.
Were they still in touch? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, she was at the memorial that the kids had.
Right.
Yeah.
How many kids did he have?
2.
With her?
Yes. Jack and Mercedes, who are both lovely.
Right.
Yeah.
Are they in the business at all, or?
Jack has been an actor and done a number of movies. Mercedes has done some movies as well. They're both musicians as well. So
right. And they live in LA?
Jack's in New York now, I think, mostly.
And Joanne lives in England, or?
No, she's in LA here? Too.
Okay.
Yeah. And Ollie, was Val's friend and business manager at the end, I'm still doing some stuff for the estate. I'm still taking care of the artwork and
is Hel Mel closed now?
It has been closed now. You just the monthly not on any space at all, and without Val's
try
presence.
having 3 kids in college.
No kidding. No kidding. You have 3 in college?
I have 2 in college, 1 in a private school.
Yeah. I had a couple kids in.
Why you stay so busy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Why am I on the road all the time?
Yeah, no kidding. If I'm awake, I better be making money.
Yeah. I mean, one of the dream, and this is something that Val and I talked about, that dream of having your own performance space, or your own theater.
That was Paul, when Paul opened the Yard. That was it.
Yeah.
Just like to live in the performance space.
Yeah. And, at one point he even thought about building out the upstairs to be a place to live.
That's exactly what Paul did in The Fake.
Right. Yeah. And then I almost did that as well, but it just wasn't that practical. I'm glad I didn't now, because I would have had to have moved out.
Right. Yeah.
But we ended up taking over a whole lot of that block for a while.
Right.
Val had this thing where he really likes to, if he can expand, he will try.
Right. Yeah.
And so we took one of the buildings next door and the whole corner where would you be able to do just an art gallery.
Right.
And ran that as an art gallery for a while.
Yeah, we are the telegraph operators. When the phone hit. Yeah. It's like.
Yeah, I don't know what else, I don't know. Well, thankfully, I'm old enough that I don't know that I'm going to have to worry about it.
Yeah, no. I mean, thank God people still need joke writers.
Well, and also you perform live.
Yeah.
And musicians aren't making money off records anymore.
No.
And so that model has changed.
That model has changed, and that is the one thing that they can't replicate.
Live is live.
Live is live. Being at a concert, being at a play, being in a comedy club, you feel it. You're there, and I think that with the advent of all this, that sense of human interaction will become even more valuable.
I think so too. I grew up doing theater, and I've always kept those theater roots.
Yeah,
and that's still what calls me.
Yeah,
and I still want to keep doing theater. I still want to. I love going out and seeing things live.
What killed me as a theater actor is at some point, inevitably, I would say in the middle of a scene, guys, we did this last night.
Well, the problem is theater doesn't always work. And when it doesn't work, it's awful.
Yeah. Well, but
when it works, it's better than anything.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, there's nothing better than great theater and nothing worse than bad theater. Yep. The smartest people I've ever known were stand-up comedians, and the dumbest people I know are also stand-up comedians.
Yeah. Although there is something that I think is true. And I've been wrestling with this a lot lately because of some upcoming stuff, but because I'm going to have to give a speech to some actors. I think the audience is the single smartest existing unit in the world.
Sure.
The audience is collectively is smarter than you will ever be.
Yep. And one of the reasons that I love doing stand-up is I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
And I still don't know what's going to work until I do it. Mm-hmm. And there are jokes that I have written that I'm like, this is a grand slam. I know it.
This is the locks on stage.
Yeah. And then something else that I didn't think would be funny.
Yeah. And I've also noticed, and I've heard other comedians say this, the same, in no discernible difference on two different nights, the audience will react entirely differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And things like, there are bits that I do that I used to close the show with. Mm-hmm. And if I did it today, I would lie there like a fish. Yeah. Just because the zhuzh goes out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe the zhuzh goes out of it for you.
100%. And they feel that. Yeah. And they sense that.
Yeah. And you're
up there like Richard Harris and Camelot.
Exactly. Just hitting the marks, man.
Yeah. Just hitting the marks.
And that's one of those things I just feel so insulted for, because we've all gotten dressed up.
Yeah.
And found a place to park. And we're there. And if you're going to coast, then why am I here?
It's so funny. My wife and I went to see Epic, Elvis Presley in concert.
Oh, yeah. How was that?
Phenomenal.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I was hoping so.
Yeah. And I love that's the way it is. And it's basically that era, that footage, but stuff that, it's like the get back to the Let It Be. And what, my wife didn't really, she obviously knew Elvis, but didn't really know Elvis. And she said, I didn't know. That guy gave 150% every show. And like, sometimes 2-3 a day. Mm-hmm. And that guy just brought it every time. Bless his heart.
Well, that's why we have the America's Vatican at Graceland.
That's right. That's true.
I brought my wife
slightly more sincere than the real Vatican.
Much more, in fact. I brought my wife there, and she's a food and travel writer. And of course, we had to have the fried peanut butter and banana sandwich, which did not get a good review.
I can't imagine what that would even taste like. Tom Waits told a funny story about seeing a bullet hole in the slide.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I pointed in the host said, well, that was just Elvis and the boys having some fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. Tom Kenny told a great story about in the Jungle Room. It was like Elvis was the first person to think to put shag carpeting on a ceiling. And then Tom goes, no, he was the first person to think to put shag carpeting on the ceiling, and then not immediately follow it with, that's a terrible fucking idea.
The hurry and scurry of modern life is getting a lot of us down. Or maybe we're just getting soft. For here's a shop, a department of a leading metropolitan store, dedicated to those who just can't take it. It's a sleep and comfort shop, and it's exclusively devoted to people looking for comfort, relaxation, and sleep. This happy couple, for instance, have a real problem, because the wife sinks out of sight on a soft mattress, and hubby there floats like a cork on any other kind. Well, here's the sleep shop's answer. A mattress with one side soft and the other side hard. And appropriately enough, it's called the Jack Sprat mattress. The Sleep Shop offers all these devices for one purpose, to make you more comfortable and relaxed, so it will be easier to sleep.
Safe and restful sleep, sleep, sleep. They're true tales.
The shocking facts.
Do you know where dreams come from?
Not specifically.
Acetylcholine neurons fire high-voltage impulses into the forebrain. These impulses become pictures. The pictures become dreams. But no one knows why we choose these particular pictures.
We've all had the dream. You know the one. You're back in high school, but you're in your underwear. And in addition to having forgotten to put on pants, there's a big test next period, and you haven't studied for it. And you only have a number 3 pencil, which is not acceptable. And you're on stage with a band. And you're holding an instrument that you don't know how to play. And. Anxiety dreams are a universal experience. And different dreams, quite famously, have different meanings. I would often have dreams where my teeth were falling out, or that they didn't fit together anymore. And these are signs of anxiety and stress. They also indicate feeling disempowered and out of control. If you dream of an owl staring at you, that means that there's something in your life causing you stress or anxiety that you need to confront. How do I know this? Because I looked it up in the online Dream Meaning Dictionary. That's how. One fascinating thing I learned about dreaming was that there are dreams that have positive meanings as well. Dreaming that you are dancing with a woman means that you're due for some good fortune. If you have a dream that a frog jumps on you, it could mean professional advancement, especially if you're being promoted to lily pad salesman. I was genuinely surprised that there were dreams that had positive meanings. Sincerely. No joke. I only get the you're on stage with the Rolling Stones holding a saxophone and you don't know how to play it and your teeth are falling out kind. But that's okay. I've done a lot of work on myself. You know who had weird dreams? The Marquis d'Hervé de Saint-Denis. He was a 19th century French aristocrat who suffered a recurring nightmare in which he was chased by a strange monster through a series of rooms in a large house. The Marquis d'Hervé de Saint-Denis was fascinated by dreams and started keeping a dream journal around the age of 13. It would eventually grow to some 22 volumes. His obsession with dreaming led to a strange phenomenon. He got to the point in his life where he became aware that he was dreaming while he was dreaming. It was the 1800s, and the idea of being conscious and unconscious at the same time didn't really fly. But the Marquis would not be deterred. In fact, he doubled down on it, thinking, if I am aware that I am dreaming, can't I also shape the dream to whatever I want? Could a person write their dreams like a movie? It would eventually come to be called lucid dreaming. And he wrote about it in a book published in 1897 called Dreams and How to Guide Them. This pioneering work would eventually give the Marquis d'Hervé de Saint-Denis a new title, the Emperor of Night. At that time, the very definition of dreaming required a complete lack of awareness. Dreams were emotional mirages dredged up from the subconscious, meant to be remembered only after the fact, and then only as a hazy, half-remembered recollection. Like all good 19th century scientific pioneers, the Marquis experimented on himself. He used triggers from his waking life, such as specific pieces of music or scents and odors, and he used them intentionally to change his dreams. Okay, it's the 1860s. What's the number one male fantasy? It was to dance with two women at once. And no, that's not a euphemism. So if you were the Marquis, you would have your assistant play the threesome waltz while you were sleeping, and the next thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire twice over. If you wanted to remember your trip to the mountains, you would get a bouquet of the flowers you smelled while you were there, lay them around your bed, and the next thing you know, you're back in the Alps. The monster that haunted the Marquis's nightmare? The hideous beast that chased him through a series of rooms over and over and over again? In his book, he claims he was able to stop the nightmare mid-nightmare. He was able to examine this creature close up. He was able to watch it, and I quote, hissing and prancing in a manner that verged on the comic. Once it was no longer terrifying. I've had a couple of reviews like that. Anyway, after this, his nightmares stopped. Although the Marquis's book, again called Dreams and How to Guide Them, was the first volume on lucid dreaming, it was very obscure. It was nearly impossible to obtain a copy. Sigmund Freud was aware of it and spent his life trying to get his hands on a copy. He never did. But the study of lucid dreaming continued. The phrase itself was coined by a Dutch psychiatrist named Frederik van Eden. In 1913, Van Eden wrote an article called A Study of Dreams, in which he documented over 350 of his own lucid dreams. Dreams that he wrote and directed. Be that as it may, by the early 20th century, lucid dreaming became an accepted human phenomenon. There was a French writer named Yves Delage who, in the waking world, was slowly going blind, but in his dream world, still had the full ability to see. This led his dream self to become something of a thrill seeker. If he could see clearly, he knew he was dreaming, and he began orchestrating his dreams so he could perform Evel Knievel-level stunts, like throwing himself off of tall buildings. Eventually, he stopped doing this in his dreams for fear that he would get confused and do the same thing in his waking life. This is not a lie. So now we circle around to the practice of astral projection. Astral projection is a belief that goes back to ancient Egypt, in which one's spirit is able to leave the physical body and wander about the astral plane. Psychiatrists began to explain this belief as an early example of lucid dreaming. Sleep researchers began to seriously study ways in which the average person could control their own dreams. In 1975, a British guy named Keith Hermé invented what he called a dream machine that allowed him, or so he thought, to communicate with a dreaming test subject. And this allowed him to influence and trigger a lucid dreaming state through a series of, wait for it, electrical shocks. Yes, where would science be without electrical shocks? Hermé's research was somewhat successful in the treatment of nightmares, and a lot of people got shocked. But lucid dreaming was beginning to be taken more and more seriously by more and more scientists. A guy named Steven Meyer gave it the full Socratic method test. And this led to the foundation of the Lucidity Institute. Great name for a shoegaze band. But in this case, it was a scientific consortium based out of Stanford University. Laberge picked up Hermé's research but substituted electrical shocks with flashing lights. Laberge used his research to build and market his own dream machine called the Nova Dreamer. The Nova Dreamer is a high-tech mask with sensors that detect rapid eye movement while you sleep. Lights embedded in the mask flash on and off to encourage a heightened sense of awareness while remaining in REM sleep. After a while, the mind becomes trained to understand the visual cues as a subconscious alarm clock. This triggers a lucid dreaming state. And once in a lucid dreaming state, the users can better understand and manipulate the stories of their dreams. Despite the fact that the Lucidity Institute is still going today at Stanford University, the pursuit of handing the average person the power to write and direct their own dreams remains pretty elusive. You can give yourself electric shocks. You can wear a sleep mask with LED lights flashing on and off. You can sprinkle your pillowcase with some flowers you smelled while hiking. You can keep a 22-volume dream journal like the Marquis d'Almeida de Saint-Denis. But the results are always the same. Sometimes the magic works, and sometimes it doesn't. But there are those who are dedicated to capturing that magic when it works. And lucid dreaming therapy has been used to treat everything from phobias to PTSD. Like the internet itself, it has a myriad of uses, but most people use it to manipulate those feelings and sensations centered in the bathing suit area. Author Patricia Garfield wrote a book entitled Creative Dreaming and the Pathway to Ecstasy, which told you how to manipulate your sex dreams into your very own on-request brain porn. We started with the Emperor of Night and will end with the Pope of Surrealism, André Breton. A French writer and poet, Breton wrote a book in 1932 called The Communicating Vessels. He was fascinated with the Marquis book, but his lucid dreaming aspirations were very specific. And I quote, whether one can voluntarily introduce masturbatory or other desires into the dream. Alas, he sighed, I have tried many times. Join the club, my dude. Despite lucid dreaming failing as spank bank material for André Breton, he still tried to get the Marquis book reprinted. The most complete representation is Dreams and the Ways to Direct Them, Practical Observations. It was published in 2020 and is considered to be the most complete representation of the original work. Oscar Wilde wrote, "A dreamer is one who can only find his way by moonlight, and his punishment is that he sees the dawn before the rest of the world." So who is the dreamer? The Marquis d'Hervé de Saint-Denis, the Emperor of Night, tried his damnedest to tell us that we were. And so, the next time you want to erotically throw yourself from a tall building, make sure you ask if you are dreaming first, and don't jump unless the answer is yes.
Do you believe in a soul?
Several.
More than one?
Blackfoot legend. Waking souls that give life to the mind and the body. A dream soul that wanders.
Dream souls. Where do they wander?
Faraway places. The land of the dead.
Be a perfect sleeper. Instead of counting sheep, you can count on a good night's sleep.
And now, on with the show.
It's a piss raining day high atop the Mulholland Drive view shelf here in sometimes sunny Southern California, usually Southern California. It doesn't rain here often, but when it does rain, it rains all at once. My guest today is a very talented author, an actor, a director, a screenwriter, and former rock and roll photographer. That's in the 80s and 90s. That's a conversation I want to get into. So much moose on the pillowcase, if I recall. But he has a book out that I saw. I was attracted first by its cover, and I said, what the hell is this? And it's called It's Alive. And it is a novel based on, I guess you would call it a historical novel, based on the tumultuous week prior to the shooting of James Whale's Frankenstein, which you might think is very narrow band, but actually it tells a story of stuff that is going on as we speak. It is basically the show Succession in 1930. It was a really engaging read. I was like, well, clearly I can pull Dwight Fry out of a police lineup. I could read this book, but he's not even in it. And I was completely entranced. Please welcome Julian David Stone.
Hello. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for sitting through that lugubrious introduction. Before we get to your photos of Joan Jett sweaty, you give us a little rundown of where this book came from and how you came to find yourself in a position to even write this book.
Well, It's Alive came from, you wanted to start with It's Alive or the rock and roll?
Well, no, It's Alive. We'll get to the rock and roll.
It's Alive came because of my love of the classic horror films. And I grew up a monster kid in the 70s and then kind of got a little older and discovered other things, girls and things like that, and drifted away.
We have a painfully similar trajectory.
Yeah. Then I rediscovered them in the late 90s. And by then I was working in the film business. You sort of listed all of the different careers I had. And I had a pretty good run for about 10 or 15 years as a screenwriter. And it was during that period when I was working for the studios that I rediscovered the films, and I became interested in how they were made at that point and started looking into all the stories about what went on behind the scenes. And when I landed on the fact that the person responsible for all of these films being made, all the classic films that we love, Dracula, Frankenstein, all the original ones, was a guy named Carl Laemmle Jr. or Junior Laemmle. And he was just 23 years old running Universal Studios. And he's the one who chose to make them. That it just lit up that there had to be a story there, because I really wanted to get to, why did he want to make these films? You know, it was such a gamble. I mean, people really don't realize how out of favor these films really were. And like you mentioned, Succession, Carl Laemmle Jr. was the son of the founder of Universal, Carl Laemmle Sr., and his father did not want him to make these films. He thought it would hurt the company. And that's where it started, was discovering him as a character and then looking into it deeper from there.
There's so much going on underneath it, and you cover it in the book, and I'm just going to give a little historical perspective about Universal Studios. You know, in the 1930s is the rise of all of the great film studios, MGM, and Fox wasn't Fox yet, I don't believe.
Well, they were two companies. They hadn't merged. It was Fox and 20th Century hadn't come together yet.
But Warner Brothers was there, MGM was there, I believe Paramount was, and they were run by all of the original studio titans.
It was the first generation, the immigrants to this country were the ones that were running, you know, the different things. Jesse Lasky was it Paramount? William Fox, I believe, was still running Fox, and all of those original guys were still controlling what they had started. Warner Brothers was still being run by the Warner Brothers,
and MGM was
Thalberg.
All of these titans. And of the major studios at the time, Universal was last place. I mean, you say it in the book. I want to get the quote right. Universal was movies for the uneducated masses.
Yes.
And you know, that's what it was like. It was like, you know, there was the high-minded theaters, you know, these lavish MGM musicals, and then Warner Brothers was classy A picture fair, and Universal was westerns, cowboy shows, and, you know, just stuff for the groundlings. But the founder of Universal, Carl Laemmle, of all of those guys, was the guy that took on Thomas Edison. And if it were not for Carl Laemmle, none of those guys would have been in business, because what people forget is Thomas Edison patented the motion picture camera and held the patent on the East Coast. The main reason the movie industry moved to California was to get away from the copyright laws that Thomas Edison would throw onto every single person that tried to make a movie without cutting him in. And, you know, the whole business was founded on something that was on a shaft. So even though Universal was in the back row, they all owed Carl Laemmle a debt, and they had much respect for him. And like any business giant, he did not consider, he considered his son his puppet, basically. I mean, the name Junior is, I think, Carl Laemmle Jr., or to call somebody Junior, is kind of child abuse. Like, can you think of anything crueler than naming your son Frank Sinatra Jr.? No.
Well, the funny thing is the Junior actually didn't come into the world named that. He was Julius Laemmle when he was born, and sometime around 10, his name was changed to Carl Laemmle Jr. and then Junior as he was called. So it's never been clear whether he did it or his father did it, but you're absolutely right. He forever stuck him in his shadow.
Yeah, and later he would do it to Lon Chaney Jr. Mm-hmm. His name was Creighton.
That one was a little bit of a marketing thing, as we all know.
Oh, completely, yeah, completely. It was like, if you want to be in the movie, you change to Lon Chaney Jr.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so Carl Laemmle Jr. is running the studio, but he's just the head of production. His father is still in charge of the studio, and Carl Laemmle Jr. makes Dracula, which is arguably the first big American horror movie.
Yeah,
and his father hated it. Didn't want him to make it, didn't understand it, and it's a huge hit. And then he wants to make a follow-up, this movie Frankenstein.
Right.
And his father says, no, you had one, you're not doing it again.
Exactly. His father thought you got lucky with the first one. People watched it, but thought, nope, you're not going to be able to pull it off again. And nobody else did. The real horror explosion doesn't quite happen yet, because Hollywood, as in general, were like, okay, that one went well. And there was a little bit, some of the studios started to think a little bit about it, but they almost across the board, they thought he was out of his mind. You got lucky once. Why are you trying this again?
Yeah, and it was, it's 1930. Those films, because the country was so conservative culturally and based so much in Christian shame, that these movies were borderline obscene.
Oh, without a doubt.
It was, you wouldn't want to dirty your hands with them. And so what the book tells is it's three battles that are going on. It's Junior Laemmle wants to make Frankenstein, and he also wants to be promoted to vice president so he can actually run the studio.
Right.
And it's like his father basically says, well, you have to pick one. On the other hand, Bela Lugosi is the big star at Universal, and they want him to star in Frankenstein because they want somebody to replace Lon Chaney Sr., who was such a giant star.
Yes.
His death was the headline of the New York Times. And Lugosi doesn't want to do it, so they offer it. So James Whale thinks, well, I'll give it to this other guy. But then they pull that back, and it's how close is the story? The book takes place in the week prior to production. Was it that close in reality?
So, it's one of the great things that's discussed in horror channels about all this back and forth. And there is a lot of historical record. I tried to stick as close to it as I could.
Right.
And
I mean, it's the great scene in Ed Wood.
Right.
Where Bela Lugosi goes, I turned down Frankenstein.
Yeah. So
it did. His career, Frankenstein wouldn't have been Frankenstein with Bela Lugosi in that part because he wasn't going to give the performance that Boris Karloff made.
No, we'll never know, sadly.
Yeah.
One of the great pieces of lost cinema is the screen test with Lugosi from Frankenstein that, one can only dream that would show up, but that doesn't exist. But
you can even see Lugosi saw the monster as a buffoon and a lout, and Karloff saw him as a child.
Right.
That's the ocean of difference between the two.
Without a doubt. When Frankenstein is first announced in 1931, the first piece of artwork that exists for Frankenstein proudly says that this will star Bela Lugosi. That is an existing thing. And then for the next several months, as the film is going through development, it is still Lugosi. Then Whale comes on board, and about a week later, Lugosi is let go from the project. And it's debated whether he quit, whether he was fired, but the result is the same. He's gone from the project. Right. And that's when Karloff comes in about 2 months before they start shooting. So now they're going down the path. It's going to be Karloff, but nothing is officially announced.
And Karloff was nobody.
Completely unknown. He'd been
literally the biggest star the studio had at the time. And Lugosi was angling to be the next Rudolph Valentino.
I think that would have been his dream, yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
But that's how he saw himself.
Yeah.
They saw him as Lon Chaney, and Karloff is a nobody.
Oh, he'd been in Hollywood for over 10 years.
Hang on, I have to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I just got a notification. The last woman has stopped listening. Okay, go ahead.
Karloff had been in Hollywood for 10 years. He'd been in over 80 movies. And, but we're talking about 2 days at one studio, 2 days at another, maybe a week if he was lucky. I do various presentations about all of this stuff. And one of the things I love to talk about is that, to give you an idea of exactly where Karloff's career was, there's a film released right after they finish shooting Frankenstein, starring Gloria Swanson, called Tonight or Never. And Karloff is in that movie. He shot it before Frankenstein, comes out right after. And the name of Karloff's character in that movie is Waiter. That tells you where he's at. He doesn't even have a name of his character. That's where Boris Karloff's
and that comes out after Frankenstein.
Comes out after Frankenstein is finished shooting, but not really. But so he had shot it just before, and that's where his career is at. So
his credit at the top of Frankenstein is a question mark.
Yeah, which is, somewhat because he wasn't famous, but also they wanted to sort of build mystery because
it's what we call ballyhoo.
Exactly, which the Laemmles were particularly known for. And just to give you an idea, we're kind of jumping ahead, but since we're on it, to give you an idea of what it did to his career, 6 months later, just about 6 months later, The Mummy comes out with Boris Karloff, and he's now so famous, he doesn't need a first name. He's just Karloff.
Yeah.
His name is the size of the title on the poster. That's what happens him from Waiter to Karloff.
Lugosi, the movie that he made instead of Frankenstein was Murders in the Rue Morgue, which I guess I'm sure it was a hit at the time, but it wasn't
okay.
Yeah, it did okay, and he is immediately second-class citizen to Karloff in that regard. And what's also crazy about The Mummy is it's basically a remake of Dracula.
Yes,
it is not only the exact same story. It is the same music. It opens with Swan Lake. It is, and it's just. I think John Balderston must have written the screenplay because it's.
I think he's one of the credit. If I can just finish up, we were talking about you were saying how much is based on the historical record.
Sure, please, yes, please.
So Karloff gets involved in the project about 2 months before they start shooting it. There's no mentions in the trades or anything. He's just starting to do makeup tests with Jack Pierce and all of that. But where it gets really interesting is when Colin Clive gets hired to be in the movie, and he's going to play Dr. Frankenstein. He travels to America from the United Kingdom. And about 2 weeks before the film begins shooting, Colin Clive gets off a boat in New York City and to get on a train to come to finish the journey to Universal. And when he gets off the boat, there's a package there from James Whale with the script. And there's a letter attached to the script of Frankenstein for Colin Clive. And it says, and playing the role of the monster will be Boris Karloff or Bela Lugosi. So we're now 2 weeks from the beginning of shooting. Suddenly Bela's name is in the mix again. And from the historical record that exists, and I believe this, we'll never know for sure, but the way I approached it was Junior had gotten cold feet about not having a star in his movie. Because like you said, Bela was a name, Karloff was unknown, and this was a risky film. So Bela has come back into the mix. And so I sort of dove into what that period must have been like leading up to production, because the first time we ever get any mention of Boris Karloff in connection to Frankenstein is on the day of the first day of production of Frankenstein. And it's in the trade papers that Boris Karloff will play this role. And it's Monday, August 22nd. The first day of shooting is the first time he's ever mentioned. And I believe the contract that exists is signed that day for Karloff. So it came down right to the last minute about who was going to be in this film.
It happens a lot to this day, and it is just business, but it must destroy people's minds. Like the story, I think I actually did it on this podcast, the story of Pierce Brosnan almost becoming James Bond and then not becoming James Bond. And then 2 movies later, becoming James Bond again. And it's just how that must eat away at your sanity. And also, we should say James Whale, who directed Frankenstein, was a very well-regarded British filmmaker that emigrated to America. Smart, creative, and well-regarded. And Colin Clive was a very good friend of his. And they had made... What was the
Journey's End?
Journey's End. World War I film.
Yeah.
Journey's End.
Yeah.
And Colin Clive was, we would call, but even more so than being an actor, he was a liquor enthusiast. Would that be?
Yes. And the energy that it's impossible to, he sort of created sort of the archetype of the mad scientist because he's just nuts. And so much of it, like you said, the alcoholism, and he just seems to have been, he died very young, and there was a lot going on.
He drank himself these guys lived hard, man. They drank themselves to death. James Whale died tragically. These guys, you look at these guys in these old movies, and they look like your dad. And it's like, yes, he was 32 when he made that. I'm like, what?
and in the case of Lugosi and Whale, they served in World War I, and this is before anybody had any real understanding of PTSD. And there's no question that has to be a factor in how they approach their lives. And I'm not sure about Clive whether he served also, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
He had, because boy, he just, we get to reap the rewards of it because he's so good in Frankenstein because he's so messed up. But you wonder, what the damn was done to get him there.
Lugosi fought in the Hungarian Revolution on skis.
Yeah,
he was
in World War I.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So World War I, but it was also like people were shooting at him while he was skiing.
Yeah, he was in the ski patrol, and no, he had a lot. There is a story of him. I wish I could remember the film. This is later in his life, of him going to see some film and being very traumatized because there were bodies on fire, and it triggered him to what he had actually seen during the war.
Yeah, I can't. You can't imagine what these guys go through. Universal was a family business in the way that Fox is the Murdoch family business. I mean, it was the name was interchangeable with Laemmle and Universal.
Even more so, yeah.
And an interesting thing that you point out in the book, and I don't know how much Junior Laemmle was aware of it, but he was telling his own story. It was I was telling his father's story of a creator that was dissatisfied with their creation. And his father thought that it was about him.
Right. That was part of the attraction to the story when you were asking me why I chose to make it, was that Frankenstein ultimately is a father-son story, a creator unhappy with his creation and vice versa. And that was very much what I was trying to parallel, because Junior and Senior had a very complicated relationship throughout their lives. And, that parallel was something I wanted to explore also.
I read a book called Scoundrels and Spitballers by Philippe Garnier, and it's just stories of screenwriters in Hollywood in the 30s and 40s. And it's a lawless lunatic asylum out here. Guys marching into studio bosses' offices, pulling guns, jumping on their desk, getting bailed out of jail. I mean, this place really was just an asylum.
F. Scott Fitzgerald has these the Pat Hobby stories that he wrote a series all about. It's about a drunken screenwriter in the 30s. And it's just like that. Like, it's just referred to, every studio has a bootlegger. Like, that's just part of there's the bootlegger, the guy there that takes your bets. It's just part of the whole operation.
Yeah. And Universal had a studio bootlegger. And also those guys are the people that knew everything that was going on. There's people like Eddie Mannix, who was, I believe he worked for Warner Brothers, who was the big studio fixer. If you needed an abortion or if you killed somebody with your car, Eddie would cover it up. There's a famous story. I believe it was Clark Gable killed somebody with his car on Sunset Boulevard. And the phone call was made. Eddie Mannix comes down. Okay, Clark, get in that cab, get out of here. They found a studio middleman studio executive who was going to get fired because he wasn't doing that great. They said, you did this. You're going to go to an honor farm for a year. Then you'll get out and you'll work for us for the rest of your career. I was like, okay. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
And the LAPD was on the payroll. They just needed somebody. Somebody had to do it.
Right. And the Times too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was just really a crazy period in your research. Because once they start shooting, the book ends when they start shooting. And again, it's a very modern story of like, everything is personal, all the biggest stories in business, or it's all personal. If Elon Musk's father was not a fucking lunatic, if Donald Trump's father had just loved him, all these stuff wouldn't happen.
Right.
But it's those people that are so broken that are driven to those levels of success. Mario Cuomo once said, anybody smart enough to be a good president is smart enough to know they don't want that job. There have been exceptions, but it's hard to argue. So, that's why the book it's really timeless, because it tells a really human story and a very relatable story to what's going on now. And how did the idea for the book come to you? I remember watching Ed Wood when it came out. And there's that scene where Martin Landau goes, I turned down Frankenstein. Yeah. And I was sitting in the Laemmle cinema, Sunset and Crescent Heights. And I thought I was the only person that knew that, and it was just like, so my brain broke. Was it the story that you wanted to tell, or was it the Laemmle story?
Well, the first thing I wanted when like I said, when I was looking deeper into the production of them, and my very first notion of the story had to do with, I started thinking about the character of Frankenstein, the monster, and I said, oh, that's interesting that Lugosi, Karloff, and Lon Chaney Jr. had all played them. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I can do something with how they approached it. Started looking in deeper, landed on Junior Lemley and went, oh my God, there's a 21-year-old running a movie studio. And then the final piece, as you were saying, was when I realized it was almost Lugosi in the movie and that the decision came down to the very end. Right. I said, okay, that's the combustible, source I want. I generally in my writing, I enjoy when you're handed the framework, like, okay, I'm going to do this with a ticking clock. Sure. They've got to make this decision. And again, the record supports it that, this was very much in flux with that letter from the director, 2 weeks before production for Colin Clive, and no mention of Karloff until production begins. So that was what it was, how it all came together. And I wanted to tell the story from the point of view of Junior Lemley, Boris Karloff, and Bela Lugosi. And so just the mix of the three of them led me to the way the book came out.
And it's interesting, also covered in Ed Wood at the very end, Lugosi never regained his footing professionally, and Universal held it against him to a ridiculous degree. I mean, they never stopped punishing.
It seems like that. You sort of, even when he comes out of Dracula being a star, he's still not getting the same reaction that Karloff gets when he becomes a star. The language was obviously an issue, but Karloff very quickly finds lots of work at other studios also, where Lugosi, it just felt at every turn luck went against him. And, he worked a lot, but he didn't really get his due, for the success of Dracula.
This isn't a comment on his talent, but he was very much the Salieri to
that's
to Karloff's Mozart. And then the other aspect of it is, again, it's a very current thing: immigration. Hollywood is all of these Eastern European Jews,
right,
that founded this business. So naturally, these stories, all through the 30s and 40s, they're all take place in Eastern Europe. The Frankenstein, there's, the Tyrolean village, the standing set on Universal's lot. Yeah. And, these people, and the same in other studios, Val Lewton and all of these guys, they're all immigrants making this country great. And so they're telling their own stories. And the trilogy of Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and then later Son of Frankenstein is an incredibly brilliant trilogy. And what's amazing about it is they're three entirely different styles of film. The original Frankenstein is pretty flawless. The original Dracula is kind of a snore.
Yeah.
The original Frankenstein is a great, down and dirty, gritty, scary, creepy horror film. That revealing scene of the monster, heightened by the fact that there's no music.
Yeah.
It's so effective. And then immediately, the sequel, Bride of Frankenstein, is a completely different film. It's a black comedy. It's like a David Lynch movie. And then Son of Frankenstein, which is clearly the lesser of the three, but it's still like a brilliant, it's a great film. The sets are amazing. It's the most German expressionist film made in America, I think, next to maybe Batman Returns. They're really amazing, amazing films, and they're carried by Boris Karloff, who was, an unknown when he first got the part. And the stories are that Whale didn't think much of Karloff.
No, that seems to be, a lot of people have corroborated that they weren't particularly get along that well.
It can be said that Whale was, by all accounts, a really bitchy queen.
Yes. Elsa Lanchester said he was a very, very bitter man. She knew him going back to the United Kingdom. Although the one part of it that is sort of interesting is that she and other people have sort of said that some of his unpleasantness came from somebody who wouldn't marry him, which doesn't fit with the Queen aspect.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that relationship was, but it was somebody back in the UK or that he was going to marry apparently at some point, and it didn't happen. And a lot of people felt that stayed with him going forward, that really shook him. I don't know. Maybe he was bisexual or just.
Yeah. Or he, I mean, I'm sure you saw Gods and Monsters and he's very admirable. It's very admirable in that in Bride of Frankenstein. I mean, it's a gay text. I mean, it's all about the.
Yeah, it's one of those that if you want to interpret it that way, you can. I mean, and
just to put Dr. Pretorius in that movie, and
no, that's definitely
but it's very unashamed, and it in that regard, it's pretty brilliant. It's brilliant in many, many ways, but it's so much greater than the sum of its parts. You can really see.
It's a delight. It's 4 years later, so the technology of filmmaking has evolved. And also Whale didn't want to make the movie. And there's all kinds of great back and forth of him and Junior trying to find a way, compromises, so that when he finally agrees to do the film, he's got carte blanche. And he's also made The Invisible Man in the middle there, which made a ton of money for Universal. So he has free reign, and that's why the film is such a delight. And like you said, he just went full blown in the comedy, brought in Dr. Pretorius.
Yeah.
Una O'Connor is crazy, way at the top and fun.
Yeah.
And it's just a delight. It's everything that was in Whale's head at the peak of his abilities and, just put out on the screen.
It looks like The Elephant Man, but it feels like Wild at Heart. It's just like he just throws everything at you, it's so like, oh, I thought I was alone. Like, it's so. Yeah. It's like a weird dark. It's a weird dark fairy tale. It's really, just an amazing movie. He did not direct Son of Frankenstein.
No, he was Universal. The Laemmles were gone from Universal, and
that was a programmer that turned out better than it had any right to.
Well, it's kind of crazy. Horror had kind of disappeared for a couple of years in the 30s, and there very famously was a theater here in Los Angeles where, on a lark, the theater owner threw up a double feature of Frankenstein and Dracula, and it was a sensation.
Yeah, Son of Kong.
And Son of Kong, although he realized nobody wanted that it was Frankenstein and Dracula. Yeah. And the new group at Universal, it went from not even a notion that they were going to make this movie to in the theaters in 5 months. That's how quickly they said, we got to take advantage of this craze. And that's why it's even remarkable how good a film it is.
Yeah.
That they threw it together really quickly. And I think it's Lugosi's greatest performance.
We'll get to that, because anybody who says he's not a good actor has not seen that film.
Right. He's so good in that.
He steals it. He absolutely steals it.
Yeah.
But from what I know, or what I think is a better way to say it, it was a combination of the production code being put into effect, because again, these movies were borderline obscenities.
Right.
And World War II kind of souring people on things associated with death. And no, because in Europe, but not in America. In Europe, but not in America.
Right. Years away, yeah.
In America, Universal became the Deanna Durbin factory.
Right. It was all of that the new group came in, didn't want anything to do with the problems with the horror films, with censorship. And it was a new group. It was Junior that was really the one behind these horror films. He's gone. The new group comes in. They want to do stuff like Deanna Durbin. And so horror's done for years.
Yeah. Somebody was talking about Prohibition, and we realized that it was a mistake.
Yeah.
And we fixed it. And Universal realized that stopping making these films was a mistake.
Yeah.
So they fixed it.
Yeah.
It's not a sign of weakness to admit you made a mistake and to fix it. It's actually a sign of strength.
Exactly.
Just word to the wise. So they make Son of Frankenstein. Lugosi is brought in to play the character of Igor, who people assumed Dwight Fry's character, his name was Igor. It's not. Nope. It was Carl. But it's so funny. And I had a TV show called Stand Against Evil that was a horror comedy TV show. And I was running the show. So I didn't really act in it that much, but I'm a egomaniac. So I wanted to be on screen, and I devised a character that looked exactly like Carl in Frankenstein. Awesome. And I just wanted him to be walking around the background of scenes, like one scene every couple of episodes. You just see him like walking, never talking to him. And it turned out that I actually had to, because of story needs and budget restraints, he had to become a human being and talk more. But if there's one mistake I really made, it was that. It was like, I really should have just done that. It would have been much better. Less is more. Yes. When it comes to me on screen. But yeah, Bela Lugosi in Son of Frankenstein is a revelation for people that think he's kind of a sweaty, hammy actor. He's so good in that movie. And do you know the story about his paycheck?
Oh, yeah. It was they were going to give him almost nothing, so the director kept him on longer.
Two things. And Karloff and Basil Rathbone are the other two stars of the movie. And they're two of the biggest stars in Hollywood at the time.
Yeah.
And they found out what Bela was getting paid. And they went to the head of the studio and say, you pay him what you pay us, or we are not showing up.
No, I hadn't heard that. Wow.
Yeah, and it was on Ghost of Frankenstein that the director kept him on to keep him working. But yeah, so it speaks well of all parties involved. I don't know what it was that he found in himself, or it was just like the combination of the right actor with the right role. But he's so good in that movie.
Yeah, I honestly think it's his greatest performance. I think he's better than even Dracula, you know?
Well, I would argue Glenn or Glenn. Dracula is not that great.
No, he's amazing in Dracula, and you're right. I should say,
and Dwight Fry is amazing in Dracula.
Yes, Dwight Fry is a joy in everything.
Yeah, he really is. So now you're writing a similar story about the Bride of Frankenstein without you giving away your book.
Yeah.
What was the Sturmdrang about that film?
Well, getting asked over and over again is what, it was. I never even thought about it. And then when I started doing convention appearances and presentations and people started emailing me, I started thinking about it like, oh, maybe there's something there. And then when I sort of finally, I don't want to give it away, like you said, but I finally found a hook. I went, okay, yeah, that'll work. And so I threw myself into that because I had never intended to do that. And it's been really flattering, the reaction, and really nice that people are interested. And I thought, okay, I should do this. And I love the world. I love the characters. And it gives me a chance to kind of expand on them too. And like you said, the first one ends just as production begins. I promise you, I'm not doing that this time. This one will go through into production. And so it gives me a chance to do that also.
Now, do we know the rumor is, or the joke is, that Elsa Lanchester and Charles Laughton were both gay and it was a marriage of social convenience? Is there proof to that, or is that just like a filthy rumor?
There's no question that Laughton was gay. That's known. Okay. Everybody has stories. No, she does not. There's actually no reference to her being gay. In fact, quite the opposite. He was
so gay that if you were a good-looking man, he became the hunch front of Notre Dame. Thank you. I'll show myself out.
No, by all accounts, she only makes reference to once or twice women making passes at her and her not being interested.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, she had an active. I've never heard anything of once they were together of her being promiscuous, but she's pretty open. And she has an autobiography that she put out in 1937 that, as you can imagine, doesn't go into much of anything.
Sure,
Then she wrote another one in the early 80s that kind of goes into everything. And she talks about Charles being gay and all of that. But I've never heard any reference of her being interested in women. I think they just had one of those theater, you spend a lot of time obviously in theater, and we know there are those couples that sort of find each other, and it works even if it becomes a non-sexual relationship.
J.D. Vance and Usha. I think about it because of what that story is and the making of the film. And then you have James Whale, and you have who has a secret because it's 1935, and he wants to work and not get murdered. So he goes to, as the old saying goes, windowless bars. I think Ernest Theisinger was gay.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. He called himself the Stitchin' Bitch.
Stitchin' Bitch, because he was a needlepoint expert, right?
No. He was quite out.
Colin Clive, who's a brutal alcoholic.
Yeah.
And possibly Elsa Lanchester. And then Boris Karloff, actually the most normal, not normal, quote unquote, like the most traditional, boring guy in the cast.
He did have 5 different wives, but so
actor.
Yeah, good point.
But just those people in 1935 telling that story. The Universal classics, the monsters are outcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason that children take to them so fervently is because children feel outcasts. Children aren't. I loved the Wolfman because I was uncontrollable, as was he. My friend was a tall, gawky kid, and he loved Frankenstein because he wasn't comfortable in his own body yet. He was, and it was there. You can see how kids relate to them. So, and that travels through time. I don't know if there's a modern equivalent for that.
The horror is so different now. Now it's shock value and gore and,
murder porn.
Yeah. These films.
Not that I hate murder or porn. I have their place.
These films were also trying to deal, particularly the Frankenstein franchise, with the the concept of just because we can do something, should we do it? That was a real theme of those films, where I'm not sure today if there's any themes that they're particularly, addressing in these films as much as shock value and gore. Yeah. Some of them, you could even argue, as I'm not even particularly a big fan of them, but things like The Purge and things like that are kind of putting a mirror on society, at least thematically. Not necessarily in execution, but the other ones I think are more shock value, and they're great for dates, for teenagers.
I'm looking at the posters behind you, and there are you could write a book about every one of these movies, because you have the Wolfman, which, and we've talked about that before. Lon Chaney Jr., not a great actor, a good actor.
Yeah,
what Bruce Campbell would describe as a ham and egger. But he's so good in The Wolfman. My theory is because he was an alcoholic, and he could relate to a guy who would wake up every morning with no memory of what he did the night before.
Yeah.
But knowing it was horrible.
Yeah.
And he, consciously or not, dialed into something really strong.
No, I think that's a very good point. And the idea of transforming, drinking, transforming. Yeah.
And then Frankenstein meets the Wolfman is where Bela Lugosi finally plays the monster.
Yep.
And there's this terrible thing where they gave the monster dialogue. What had happened was, if you follow the canon, the brain of Bela Lugosi's character Igor was put into the Frankenstein monster at the end of The Ghost of Frankenstein. But Lon Chaney Jr. couldn't play him in the sequel because he had to play the Wolfman in the sequel, and he couldn't play both parts, although I think he does in one scene. Yeah. So, if he has Bela Lugosi's brain, let's have Bela Lugosi play the Frankenstein monster. And then they give him dialogue, and they play the film, and people laugh at it because he's got this thick Hungarian accent, and it looked fine coming out of Igor, but coming out of Frankenstein didn't work. So they cut all of his dialogue out of the movie. You never realize, but this was all in the story of the movie, that the monster's blind. That's never said in the film. And if you watch it, there are times when he's moving his lips and not saying anything. It's because they'd taken out his dialogue. So it's really he gives the performance he was afraid he was going to give in the first one, of this lumbering idiot, because they took away all the context.
Well, there's also a great irony, and you have the perfect setup to it, that when, Bela being a smart actor, he in the script, he was blind. He acts like a blind guy with his hands out in front of him. So that, when you ask anybody to imitate the Frankenstein's monster, that's the first thing they do, is they stick their arms out and walk stiff-legged. Karloff never did that. That's Lugosi's. So he kind of had the last laugh in that the version that everybody imitates is Lugosi's version of the monster.
And here's something that 6 people will appreciate and everybody else will just have to suffer through. And this is mentioned in your book, but it has a weird life to it. Boris Karloff had bridge work in his mouth, and he took it out, and it sunk in the right half of his face. stage right or stage left. I don't know.
Yeah.
One side of his face. And it made him look very cadaverous, and they shaded it, and it really did. He looked like a skull.
Yeah.
When the first actor to play the monster that was not Boris Karloff was Lon Chaney Jr., they tried to recreate that shading to match it, even though Lon Chaney Jr. had a face like a ham. By the time Glenn Strange played the monster, it had devolved into a beauty mark.
Right.
He just has a Marilyn Monroe beauty mole on his cheek that has nothing to do with anything.
There's also a difference between Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein having to do with Karloff becoming successful. Part of not only the bridge work helps the look in Frankenstein, but not being a particularly successful actor, he wasn't eating that well.
Right.
When we get to Bride, he's a lot more fleshy. He's living a good life.
Yeah, and by son, he's very healthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is true. It is one of those things where you never. It's like if you. Let's bring things up to a date and talk about Perry Mason, where Raymond Burr gained about 7 to 10 pounds a season, and by the seventh season he's the SS Burr. But your career to move away from James Wales, you have a really interesting story. Are you from Northern California originally?
Yes.
Where did you grow up north?
Born in New York. Family moved when I was 4 to Palo Alto, right in part of Silicon Valley.
Sure.
And that's where I grew up.
Right. During the, I guess was it late 70s, early 80s, or 80s to 90s? You seem to have been at every concert I wish I was at when I lived up there.
I was obsessed with rock and roll starting in my teenage years and into my 20s, and took a whole lot of pictures.
How did you get into that? And tell us some of these stories. I'm going through your book, and the book is called "No Cameras Allowed." There's probably a story there.
Yeah, well, that's what started. I like most kids, wanted to be a rock and roll star, and that ended about 10 minutes after I was handed a guitar and had zero talent. But I was into photography, so I thought, I'll start photographing concerts. Well, in the early 80s, the Ramones came to town, and I said, great, I'll go down there and photograph them. And I showed up at the club with my camera bag over my shoulder and ready to walk in. I'm like 16, 17, 18 years old. And the bouncer's like, you are not coming in here with that camera. And so I go back to my car, and I'm about to dump everything in my car. And I went, I wonder if I could sneak this in. And I brought one lens and a camera body, stuffed them in my socks, walked past the bouncer, photographed the Ramones, pictures. Amazing. And after that, I was obsessed, and I just started sneaking my equipment into shows, and it got way more complicated. I modified an old Navy overcoat so that I could hide stuff, out of view, to pat me down.
And you didn't use a flash.
No, I didn't use a flash. And I just got more and more into it and started just photographing every band I could see. I was just obsessed with it.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm just opening up and I'm seeing you saw Prince a bunch of times. And these, I know for a fact, these were, the 85 tour, which I believe is the Purple Rain tour.
Purple Rain, yeah.
Those were not easy tickets to get.
No. And that was another one where I had to do all kinds of, I tell the stories in the book of the different ways I evaded getting in. And that one, I just bought a new camera lens, a huge telephoto lens, and it was too big to hide on my body. So I went with a date, and, this is the mid 80s. So hair is really big.
I'm just going to say everybody, not just the girls, the dudes, everybody's, I'm guilty of it myself. I don't know what we were thinking.
And so the way I got this camera lens in, my date always brought with her this giant can of, what's that stuff that you use for
hairspray? Aquanet?
Aquanet.
Yeah.
She always had a giant can of Aquanet. So I hid the lens under the can of Aquanet. And I remember walking up to the security guy, and he sees her bag with this bulging, thing in it. And he opens it and sees the Aquanet. He's like, oh, okay, go on, not realizing there's a lens under it. So.
It's a story of mullets and moose. It really is. Just looking at U2's mid 80s mullets, and it is one of those things like, what were we thinking?
My wife is about 15 years younger than me, and she had never seen a picture of Bono without
you dirty dog.
And I had never seen, Bono without his glasses that he's so synonymous. And my pictures are from 83 and 85, and he looks completely different, like you said, with a mullet and no glasses.
He looks like Bobcat, actually. This is amazing. And was this all up in the, David Bowie and the Go-Go's?
No, I shot mostly the Bay Area, a little bit of Los Angeles, and some stuff in Europe. I shot U2 in Ireland in 1983.
Were you selling these photos, or these just your personal photos?
I started as a teenager, and then I started wanting to go pro, at the ripe old age of 20. And I sent a list. I typed up on a it's very almost famous. I typed up on a old fashioned, mechanical typewriter, a list of my photos. I mailed it off to Rolling Stone magazine. And literally I get a call at 8 a.m. one morning after I'd been out shooting a concert the night before, and I answer it. And it's an editor from Rolling Stone, and they want me to send them some photos. And I'm like half awake, trying to understand this. And I remember the woman wanted me to FedEx them, and she gave me a FedEx account number. I'd never done any of this before. So I asked her, I said, so I pay for this? And she was like kind of condescending, like, no, that's why I gave you the number.
Wow.
So I eventually, I sold stuff to Rolling Stone and Spin, and I got hired by a Bay Area, for BAM, which was a Bay Area magazine.
Yeah, sure. Bay Area Music.
Yeah, that was, and then, and also another magazine called Artist Magazine. And so I started to do this in my early 20s. And then I became a crazy Deadhead fan of the Grateful Dead, and that ruined my photography career because I just wanted to dance. I literally I used to keep these lists.
It is so funny because in your book it's all, it's very, it's very 80s. It's like, it's the Cars, the Go-Go's, Huey Lewis and the News, Prince, the Police, and then suddenly a lot of Dead.
Yeah.
Like, hey, wait a minute.
I used to keep a list of all my concerts, and you see all this different stuff. Then you see Grateful Dead, some other concerts, Grateful Dead, and then suddenly it just becomes Grateful Dead, Grateful Dead. Yeah. I literally hung it up at that point.
You saw Spinal Tap at Wolfgang's.
It was incredible. That I always get asked, what was your favorite show? And I can't answer that, but I can say the most fun was that. This was Spinal Tap live within weeks of the movie coming out.
Right, because I saw them live, but it was in 90 or 91.
Yeah, they did a tour in 91, 92. Right. They did a little tour of California literally while the movie was still in the theaters. Right. And it was like they had jumped off the screen. Right. And you could just tell they couldn't believe that they were doing this, that, their made-up band is suddenly filling this club. And it was so fun.
Where did you go to school? Where did you go to film school?
I went to California Institute of the Arts up in Valencia, and had some of the Pixar guys were in school with me. Right. And Jim Mangold, those were the other notable ones that were there when I was there. It was a great school because it was what was so unique about it.
I'm trying to get my youngest daughter to look at it.
Oh, it's very special in that it's all concentrated in one building. I don't know if you've been up to the campus.
I've never been to the campus, but obviously
this is actually, in fact, it was started by Disney in the late 80s. I'm sorry, late 60s, and I believe
it had a different name. It was like the Pacific.
Chenard. It was Chenard, and then it became California Institute of the Arts, and they weren't sure if it was going to work, so they built one massive building as it's a hospital, and so that if the school failed, it would turn into a hospital. So
that's amazing.
You go there, and it's perfect because it's an institute, and it's one massive building with two dorms, one that has apartments for upperclassmen, and then one that's traditional. But you're literally, just walking to the cafeteria, you're going by a dance recital going on in one, a music thing, art. And one of the things that I did, I was in film school there, but what I did is I went to the theater department and said, hey, can I use your technicians and set builders for my films? So you had all this access. So I highly recommend it. I go back to the 80s when I was there, but that was the magic of it, was the exposure to all this different art in the same building. You couldn't avoid it. It wasn't just that's the film building. So you never saw anybody else. To get to everything, you're just bombarded by painting and dance and theater. So I recommend it.
Before you, I guess, that you had Burton and Heinrichs.
Right.
And,
and I was there right after Tim Burton, but while I was there, his wife started going to the school, or his girlfriend in the art program. So he used to be there at parties. It'd be the weirdest thing to go, oh, there's Tim Burton,
Right. And he was a part of that Disney funnel. He was funneled right into to Disney.
That was the employment rate, because when CalArts, when I was there, it was the only place you could get a degree in character animation. So the employment rate was like 97%, because this was the best of the best to get in the first place. And then they just, took them all into Disney when they graduated. And the person who I knew very well, and I'm still friends with, who was Andrew Stanton, the director who did Mo and Wall-E. He lived 2 doors down, huge U2 fan.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. I met you originally at the Gardena Cinema.
Yep.
Where I think they were showing The Wolfman.
Yep. It was 2 days of the Universal whole lineup. Yeah.
Right. God, I love that place.
It's a great theater.
I'm worried that I love it, because that means it's doomed.
They seem to keep it going. God bless Judy.
Every place that I love, the Mission Tiki Drive-In Theater, and now I just found out that the Laurel Canyon Country Store is going to become like a winery. I'm just like, everything I love is it's just like people follow me around with a bulldozer. He seems to like that. Destroy it. But I met you at the Gardena Cinema, and you were with a young woman named Antonia Carlotta, who has a really interesting story. Who is Antonia, and how did you guys meet?
Yeah, so Antonia is the great grandniece of Carl Laemmle, Junior Laemmle. She's basically Junior Laemmle's cousin. And about 3 years ago, just when my book first came out, Hollywood Heritage asked me to put together an evening, about my book and a presentation. So she has a terrific web series, which I recommend everybody check out, called Universally Me, where she talks about her family's history, primarily the horror films, but she also gets into the other stuff that Universal has done, some of the stuff we talked about. So when I was putting together this evening, I reached out to her and said, hey, I'm going to be doing a presentation about your cousin, Junior Laemmle, but then I want to do a panel afterwards, and would you like to be a part of it? So she came and did that. And then we've done a bunch of other events together. We came to be friends. We've done some social stuff. She went to a Dead concert at the Sphere with me and a whole group of people. And yeah, she's great. We've done, probably 10 or 15 events together, and we have a bunch coming up.
Did she come to an awareness of this stuff? Has she always known about it, or is this something that she recently discovered?
About it on her web channel. She kind of discovered it as a teenager, and then started making all of these videos about her family's history. Her mother is also a little bit of a historian, so I think it was through that. I've been encouraging her to write a book. Because there's never been a really good biography of the Laemmles. There's so many books on Thalberg and Meyer and all these other guys. And I even with all the research I've done, I've never entirely figured out Carl Laemmle Sr. He's so fascinating.
And it's such a quintessential American story. So where can people get It's Alive?
It's Alive is at Amazon.com, like everything, or you can get it at my website if you want a signed copy, JulianDavidStone.com. That and No Cameras Allowed are available there. And I have an earlier novel about the era of live television in the 1950s called The Strange Birth, Short Life and Sudden Death of Justice Girl. That's also available. That one, interestingly enough, was almost a TV series about 7 or 8 years ago. You know how that goes more than anything.
Was Justice Girl a show, or is it a fictitious?
It's a story about a writer in the golden age of television who creates by accident this character named Justice Girl that becomes a sensation, and it's all of what he goes through dealing with the network. And it's, again, the same way I told my story between the point of view of Lugosi, Karloff, and Junior. It's told from the point of view of the writer, the lead actress who plays Justice Girl, and the head of the network. And it deals with the blacklist and all of that. And Beacon Pictures had it for a number of years and was trying to develop it as a series, because it's actually my favorite novel that I've written, of the stuff that I've written. And I think it would make a hell of a good TV series.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'd love to.
I'm a little biased.
Sure, of course. Go to juliandavidstone.com and or Amazon. But if you go to juliandavidstone.com, you don't have to give money to Jeff Bezos.
There you go. And I'll sign it for you.
And he'll sign it for you. And it's just a different website, so just as good. It's live. It's a really great book. And if you're a music nerd, No Cameras Allowed is almost mandatory. Some really beautiful stuff in there. It's so evocative of an era.
Yeah, it is, like anything, when you're living through it, you don't realize.
You don't realize it was, you don't realize you're having the time of your life until it's over.
Oh, it was fun.
That's terrific. Well, Julian David Stone, thanks for coming on today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
All right. To be continued.
Other podcasts reach for the sky. Dana Gould Hour.
We barely try.
This has been the Dana Gould Hour, brought to you by the Internet. Music by Andy Paley, with Jake Posner behind the board. Graphic design and web production by Spencer Hunt and Segan Friend. Sound editing and post-production by Jalinda Palmer and Joe Napolitano. Tom Kenny speaking.
I'm a DJ, I'm a person, I'm a singer, I love to sing and DJ. Boom! Peace out! You want me? Peace out! Boom.